It's a simple fact that people don't make good decisions without good information. But what happens if you live under a system that makes it where all the information, or at least most of it, is pretty damn suspect at best? Welcome to life under white supremacy. When there's something that white supremacy wants to keep under wraps, the first thing that they try to do is to just miseducate people from the jump. That way, the people will never ever actually get close to whatever it is white supremacy wants to keep hidden away. But on the off chance that something happens that white supremacy can't keep covered up, well, then you got to get out in front of the story, and that's where disinformation comes in. You tell people all kinds of lies and fairy tales and get conspiracy theories swirling around. What you're trying to do is you're trying to flood them with just a deluge of information that's all bad. That way, if anyone does mention the truth, well, that gets dismissed as just another conspiracy theory, or it's just lost in the shuffle. If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon, so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like, as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. In the wake of the assassination of the former Haitian president, Jovenel Moise, there were a lot of people, many of them black, who were basically repeating the first thing the white media told them to say, saying that it was Colombian drug lords or that it was China. I'm surprised that the man on the moon wasn't brought into contention. I guess that's because that's not what the white media told them. But the truth of the matter was the black media had been telling you this has the U.S.'s fingerprints written all over it. And you had people who called themselves commenting in my comment section, or they went on TVA's broadcast and they were talking that stuff about it's China. You don't understand, it's China. Those folks who were doing that mess, you look like agents now. You look like freaking agents. We are not at all surprised that after something of this nature happens, where the Haitians capture the gunmen and put them in front of the camera so the world can see them, all of a sudden we got a whole bunch of conspiracy theorists, far more than usual, because this ain't the first time that a big story has been reported on by the black media. But all of a sudden, for this one in particular, there just came this storm of individuals who were throwing up all kinds of manner of distraction, stuff that was clearly disinformation that didn't make any damn sense. And yet you had a lot of folks descending on the black media to spread that. You think that doesn't smell just a little bit suspicious? This is why we tell you, family, it matters who you get your news and views from. It matters who you allow to inform your sensibilities. And if you stick with the black media, you know, the guys who actually operate in your interest and not the interest of established white power, you stick with the black media and you can't go wrong. And I can't help but notice that as more and more information comes to light, because the white supremacist media, they can't cover it up. That was the genius of the Haitians going ahead and taking these killers and these thugs, these mercenaries, and putting them in front of the cameras because they were doing an end run around the white media. And that end run was to show the Colombians back in Colombia, hey, we got you, man. We got you guys here. Showing their faces. We know you got family members back home. You know how tight them Latinos are. So here are your family members, and you know they're going to talk. Whoever it was who sent them, you know they're going to talk. So this, you're not going to be able to deny that they're your guys. And that's exactly what happened. Even the president of Colombia, he's sitting here having to admit to it. Not that he doesn't admit Colombia having any part in it. You know, this guy being a U.S. puppet, he would never be quite so upfront about it. But he admitted that, yeah, the guys, at least a number of the individuals involved, these guys had detailed knowledge of what was going to happen. According to an interview that the Colombian president held with a FM radio station, he said there was a big group that were taken on a supposed protection mission. But within that group, there's a smaller group, which were those who apparently had detailed knowledge of what was to be a criminal operation. Now, that's the president of Colombia, and he's talking as if, yeah, okay, well, we can't hide it. Might as well go ahead and cop to some of it, because it's not like we can deny it. But the big question of the day, the $64,000 question is, how the hell these guys get in here? Who the hell put them up to it? Well, since their faces are out there, you've already got members of the Colombian military who are talking. I posted for you earlier today a CNN piece where they had spoken with a retired Special Forces soldier in Colombia named Matias Gutierrez. And this Colombian ex-Special Forces guy, he told CNN that he too had been approached for a job by a Florida company. Florida, not Beijing. Florida, not Bogota. Matias said they only mentioned a company based in the U.S. and a job as private security in Haiti. Security for the president of Haiti, who was believed to be under death threat, Gutierrez said. It was all a plot, he added. How can you have this type of assassination and not have a single dead but the president himself? If my fellows had done the job, they would have had to enter the residence and kill the guards before killing the president. You would have seen a combat scene. Now, this is where I kind of got to call an audible on this one. You see, Colombia, if you look at a map, it's right next door to Venezuela, the world's largest oil reserve. And Colombia happens to, they know full well that Hugo Chavez, the former president, the deceased president of Venezuela, he had been overthrown with nary a shot fired. So while it is true that you would expect that the president's residence in Port-au-Prince would have looked like a war zone, while that is to be expected, it's not the first time the U.S. has orchestrated the toppling of a head of state without having to have a gunfight. Remember, after Hugo Chavez was temporarily overthrown, the U.S. government was actually bragging about it before it had happened. They were celebrating it before it had happened because Washington were the ones who orchestrated it. So, yeah, it's true that the president's residence should have been a war zone, but with the U.S., especially with the use of jackals, as they say, these are individuals, foreign nationals who are paid off by the U.S. to do in their own people. These jackals, like the head of the presidential residence security, who's been taken into custody, by the way, these guys, they'll throw the freaking doors open for you. I mean, hell, that's a white supremacist trick that goes back hundreds of years. You might want to ask, what was it that Benedict Arnold actually did? Why did Benedict Arnold, what act of treason did he commit? He didn't kill anybody. Well, what did he do? Well, what Benedict Arnold did was he was the second in command to General Washington. He was in charge of West Point, which was a military fort at that time, not a military academy. And what he had done was he made a deal with the Brits that if the Brits showed up and paid him a certain amount of money, he would simply tell the garrison at West Point to throw down their arms, just put down your arms. The ruse was going to be that it was going to be an inspection, so everybody would have to turn over their firearms to be inspected, but what he was actually going to be doing was confiscating them, and the Brits would march into West Point and take it without a single shot fired. That's what Benedict Arnold did. So this idea of the white supremacists, oh, there's no way in hell they'd be able to pull something like that off without having some sort of war zone. Oh, it would be a battle. No, the white supremacists, they specialize. And they don't do it all the time, but one of the things that the CIA in particular likes to do, white supremacists have hundreds of years of experience of being able to topple some opponent without firing a single shot. You don't have something as evil and vile as white supremacy rule the world for half a millennium without them being sophisticated. And speaking of sophistication, as soon as they sit here talking about these mercenaries were hired by a Florida-based company, first thing comes to my mind is, where's this company at? It's in Miami. This company, which actually is nothing more than a CIA front, because the CIA routinely uses front companies. Ask Valerie Plame about that. Those of you, some of you older cats, you guys remember Valerie Plame. She had her cover blown by W shortly after the second Iraq War began, because Valerie Plame's husband, Ambassador Joe Wilson, he was running around saying, ain't no WMDs in Iraq, this is all for oil, and he was making W and his boys look bad. So what happened was Karl Rove and his buddies, they hatched a plot to leak to Karl Novak that Valerie Plame was a CIA agent. That was their form of reprisal. And what it came out was that this Valerie Plame woman, she actually had worked for a CIA front company. That's the way the CIA works. They set up front companies that only exist out of a P.O. box, that only exist out of a strip mall office or something, typically just something where they can leave very quickly if their cover gets blown. And that's how the CIA operates. Their operatives use front companies. And that's what Valerie Plame was doing. Going all over the world saying, I work for this Reynolds company or what have you. Oh, come to find out, just a P.O. box. And that's very similar to how this little operation, this company, this Miami-based company that these mercenaries were recruited by, sounds a lot like them. The name of the company is CTU Security. In fact, as it turns out, this company has had a number of different names. According to the Aryan propagandist, this CTU company lists 2 Miami addresses on their website. One is a shuttered warehouse with no signage. The other is a small office suite under a different name. A receptionist had said the CTU owner stops by once a week to collect mail. Yeah, I guess that's considered to be a little bit classier than a P.O. box. And as for the owner of this little front company, I mean, it's a front. What the hell else can it be? Antonio Intriago is his name. And this Miami-based businessman, he happens to be Venezuelan. Not only that, but he's also very much opposed to the Nicolas Maduro regime. As you know, Nicolas Maduro was Hugo Chavez's hand-picked successor. And Maduro has one mission, and that is to make sure that Venezuela does not go back to the white supremacist-controlled prosperity only for the white folks and poverty for the blacks and for the Indians and for the mestizos. That's Nicolas Maduro's job, to make sure that what they have fought so hard for with the Chavista revolution doesn't get sold out. And that's why the U.S. hates them. Venezuela is sitting on top of the world's largest oil reserve. Hugo Chavez made it clear, you ain't getting one drop of it unless you pay market price. And no, you don't get to have me as a puppet leader. Next thing you know, Hugo Chavez comes down with a mysterious case of stomach cancer. The man had been perfectly healthy before, but it's not like anybody would use a radioactive isotope in order to poison somebody. Vladimir Putin's been doing it all over the world, but the U.S., no, that would be beneath the U.S. The CIA would never do something like that. But my point is, you got a Venezuelan expat who happens to be a fierce opponent of a regime that the U.S. dislikes and wants to see overthrown. And this Venezuelan loyalist, this puppet, this is the guy who some people want us to believe that the Haitians would go to. You go to a Venezuelan so that this Venezuelan can go hire some Colombians to go do some wet work in Haiti. Come on, the U.S.'s fingerprints are all over this thing. Miami, for those of you who don't read your history, and for a lot of y'all talking about it was China, it was Colombian drug lords, you guys don't read. That's the problem. You want to hide something from Negroes, especially dumb, lazy Negroes, just put it in a book. Miami happens to long be a hotbed of CIA recruitment activity. That's where the CIA back in the 60s recruited Cubans to go on that damned Bay of Pigs failed invasion. Not to mention you had narcos from Colombia who were flying their loads in and out of there. Oh, Miami has long been a nexus for the CIA to run their dirty little operations out of. And this was another one. So no matter how you slice it, this thing, we already knew that the CIA was behind this, that the U.S. government was behind this. But all the fingers are pointing towards them. And the reason why, of course, is it's one thing if all of these guys had gotten away. It would have been another thing if they had all been killed. But what happened was the Haitians took them alive and put them in front of the cameras. Now the Colombian government's under pressure from the families of these mercenaries. Oh, please don't let little Jorge or Pepe or whomever get his head chopped off by the Haitians. You know how they like to take a tire and fill it with gasoline and put it around your neck and then set it on fire. Lacing, they call it. Little flaming necklace. Oh, please don't let that happen to my loved one. Just tell them whatever they want to hear so they can come back. And the American government is looking and going, damn, Any of these guys who we told a little bit too much to, they're going to talk. Yeah, you know, you're damn right, they're going to talk. The Haitians are going to lean on them until they talk. So the U.S. is stuck in a position where they can't really say, oh, these guys, we don't know a damn thing about any of them. Reuters reported today that a Pentagon spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Ken Hoffman, said that a small number of the detainees, a small number of these mercenaries, they should have said, had received U.S. military training in the past while serving as active members of the Colombian military. Now, this is exactly what I and other members of the black media told you. But in my last video essay, I told you that you would find out before it was all over, these guys have been the recipients of U.S. military training, not a little bit either. You would find that the U.S. government knows exactly who these guys are. Otherwise, how would the Pentagon be able to go ahead and cop to, yeah, these guys you're seeing on screen, yeah, we know who they are. Yeah, we've trained these guys. I told you that you would find out that was the case, that the U.S. had trained them. And sure enough, here it is. So you got the U.S.'s fingerprints on this CTU company, this little CTU security front company. You got the U.S. who trained these mercenaries. And yet I'm supposed to believe that it was China or some Colombian drug lords who were actually responsible for this. And for those of you who are gullible or easily impressioned, which is the same thing, you may not want to be posting anything. You need to take a long, hard look in the mirror if you actually bought any of the white media's initial cover stories about it was China or has something to do with Colombia. That's what you do, though, when you're white supremacy. If something blows up in your face, you try to flood the zone with as much disinformation as possible. Just throw out conspiracy theories, white noise, anything to get people talking about anything other than what the issue really is. Because a few of them will be gullible enough to go for it. All it has to do is sound a little interesting, and that's enough for some folks to just follow it hook, line, and sinker, while the truth is staring them in the face, excruciatingly obvious. So as the black media told you, before anyone else, you have U.S.-trained mercenaries working for a U.S.-based front company who killed the president of Haiti. I mean, hell, you didn't need the white media to tell you that. Well, some of us didn't need the white media to tell us that, though a large number of others apparently actually did, it seems. Come on, common sense should have told you how stupid this was. The idea that it would be the Chinese or the Colombian drug lords or somebody else? Hell no. What? Am I supposed to believe that there are some Haitians who apparently they got money, but apparently not enough money to actually be able to get an election in Haiti on their own, but they got enough money to go hire some hitmen? Really? So apparently you're going to go to some Venezuelan in the U.S. so that he could hire some Colombians to knock off the president for you. Am I supposed to believe that? Because apparently, I guess it would be too much trouble and too much work to have to recruit some Haitians in Haiti to do it. Oh, the Haitians are so timid. They're so averse to violence, except for the riots that are going on there right now. Oh, the Haitians, it would be beneath them to pick up a gun and start blasting folks, because God knows the Haitians are never known for doing that. Oh, how difficult it must be to find some Haitians in Haiti who are willing to pick up arms and go decide to throw the bum out party at the presidential residence. Oh, how unheard of. God knows Haiti has no history of revolutions. God knows that Haitian revolution would be a contradiction in terms, right? Right? Because that's what I would have to believe if I was so dumb as to actually think, oh, the former president, the now deceased president, he had political enemies. That's the white media line that they're pushing. Oh, this is all the Haitians, don't you know? Oh, the Haitian president had enemies. Gee, not like Joe Biden, right? And these enemies, they wanted him out, not like Joe Biden, though, right? And, well, because of that, these guys, they took their money and they went and bought some mercenaries. Yeah, because, getting some guys from Haiti, that would have been just too difficult. Far easier to go to Bogota or to go to Miami and meet with this Venezuelan and have him go hire some mercenaries from Colombia, guys who you don't know and never met, but don't worry, they got U.S. training, and that's pretty much all you need. And they'll go and do it. Don't worry that the money might disappear, and don't worry that these guys might botch the hit. Does that make sense to anyone, that the Haitians need to go and farm this out to somebody else? Because when the U.S. had Hugo Chavez overthrown, briefly, when he was briefly ousted in that coup, they didn't have to go and get some Colombians to do it. Hell, they had some of his own do it. They had the Blancos, the clowns who had been misruling the country for so long, and whose Blanco misrule led to Hugo Chavez being able to seize power easily because of how badly the Blanco ruling class had screwed things up in the country. If you want to say that the assassination of the deceased Haitian president was an inside job, that there were certain Haitians who wanted to have him dead, sure, but that's the same all over the world. Was it an inside job? Certainly it was. But my question is, who was on the inside? So at this point here, I'm sure that there's going to be more revelations about this because the Haitians did the right thing, at least as far as handling these mercenaries goes. But of course, if you want to know why it is that Haiti has been just in a toilet of a case, of a fix ever since the revolution, well, there's also one other bit of information that needs to be said. Haiti's acting prime minister, Claude Joseph, has requested troops from both the United States and the United Nations to help secure Haiti's airport and other infrastructure. There you go. See, after the Haitian Revolution, you had a lot of those mulattoes who were sweet-talking their darker-skinned brothers and sisters that, we need to normalize relations with France as quickly as possible, and that means we need to make sure the French are happy, and we got to pay them some indemnities, and we got to let these guys back in. In other words, the old life returns. Haiti won the war, but you had the mulattoes who were determined to help France and the Europeans win the peace. You might want to ask whatever happened to Haiti's gold reserves. So this is what happens when you decide to have Europeans, when you invite the Europeans to stick their nose into what is a black affair. And that's exactly what Haiti's acting prime minister is doing. Now, perhaps this guy here, he smells like a U.S. puppet. What the hell else can he be? Okay, so the security forces apparently went rogue, I suppose, and they made sure that everybody saw who the mercenaries were. But now Haiti's acting prime minister, under cover of chaos, he's saying we need troops from the U.S. and the United Nations. Yeah, because the United Nations, they're blue-helmeted thugs and perverts. They've never, ever done anything against the people of Haiti, have they? Sure, invite the United Nations in. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You could have all of these Europeans and people from other parts of the world who come in, start raping the women and girls, start getting these females pregnant, if not giving them STDs, and then running off, and maybe even killing one or two just for kicks. I mean, but then again, that's far-fetched. Kind of like the U.S. being responsible for the assassination of the deceased Haitian president. That's far-fetched. Much more likely that China would be behind it. Much more likely that Colombian drug lords would be behind it. Certainly not the U.S. And that's the entire point of the disinformation that we were subjected to for the last few days. The white media, not to mention white powers that be, had some Negroes running around. Oh, no, y'all, it ain't about the U.S. at all. See, my brother, what it's about is these people over here. It ain't the U.S. Get the hell out of here. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up now, because the entire point of this video essay was get across to you, disinformation is real. And something so pig simple that should have been obvious from the jump, and yet you see how white supremacy operated. First order of business, flood the zone with as much white noise as possible. Try to drown out the truth. If you can't keep the truth from being spoken, then just try to drown the people in a sea of noise. China, Colombia, internal conflict, the man on the moon, the Martians. Just go ahead and just say that anything, but don't let that black media be out there saying it was the U.S. all along. And you know how that black media is. They're not going to let this go. They're going to make sure that people are reminded of this. Yeah, you've had a lot of revolution going on. You got a whole lot of unrest in these places where you got majority blacks, like say Cuba. Most of them are black, but they deny it. So as far as I'm concerned, we'll go ahead and put an asterisk beside Afro Cubans. But you see what's going on in Cuba. Oh, apparently they want the vaccine so bad. Apparently they're rioting for it. Yeah, I'm sure it's about the vaccine. I'm sure it's not because you got some jackals who are in there who are trying to foment unrest, because God knows the U.S. would never do such a thing. And in South Africa, former president of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, has been arrested. And by the way, Jacob Zuma, while he said some good words, he never backed it up with good deeds. So I know that there are some of y'all who are going to say, hey, he was shaking hands with Robert Mugabe back in the day. Yeah, but like Robert Mugabe, there were a lot of words, but not the sufficient actions that we should have seen. But nonetheless, even the fact that Jacob Zuma was talking about taking back the land and talking about retaking the resources, well, apparently somebody decided that he was unfinished business, and this is how they intend to finish him. And you got riots going on over there, so apparently there are at least some South Africans who are not taking this lying down, and that's good. But you notice how all of a sudden we got all this unrest in these places. They got a lot of black faces, and we got all this unrest going on now. But at this point, expect to see the next phase of the white media disinformation campaign kick into high gear. They can't deny who the mercenaries are, where the mercenaries came from. So instead, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be denying, well, you can't prove that the money for it came from the U.S. And they're going to be saying instead that it was some Haitians with an axe to grind or a grudge with the president. And that's what they're going to be doing, screaming that as loudly as possible. The Aryan propagandist, Associated Press, they're already beginning to lay the groundwork for exactly that narrative. Even when they have a story that has no choice but to put some facts in there. When they have no choice but to put the facts into the story, they also make sure to sprinkle in a heavy dose of lies to go along with it, so that you can't really, those of you who are less circumspect about these things, then what happens is you wind up ingesting the lies alongside the facts, because you can't tell where the facts end and the lies begin. For example, this guy, this CIA frontman is what I'm going to call him, Antonio Intriago. Well, they're actually reporting on him in the AP very sympathetically, as if he's some sort. By the way, they haven't talked to him yet, still haven't had an interview with him yet, and yet they're talking all sympathetically about this man, saying that for the owner of a small private security company with a history of avoiding paying debts and declaring bankruptcy, it looked like a good opportunity. Find people with military experience for a job in Haiti. Antonio Intriago, owner of Miami-based CTU Security, seems to have jumped at the chance, hiring more than 20 former soldiers from Colombia for the mission. Now look at that. They haven't talked to this man. They don't know whether or not it looked like a good opportunity for him or not. They don't know if he jumped at the chance or not, but that's how they're talking about it, as if he was just some down on his luck Joe Schmo. Now, how much you want to bet that before it's all over, we're going to find out this Intriago guy has a long-standing history with both the Venezuelan Blanco ruling class that Hugo Chavez overthrew and with the U.S. military before it's all over. But the white media is talking about him as if he was some Joe Schmo who used to run a lemonade stand and he was just down on his luck. Really? You're running what is, if not literally a CIA operation, it might as well be, because it operates just like one. You're running basically a CIA front, and the white media is trying to talk about him as if he's just some Joe Schmo. See, they also talked to another Venezuelan, this guy by the name of Richard Noriega, and what he said was that, well, he probably didn't know what he was getting himself in for. By the way, Richard Noriega, he's also Venezuelan. Did I forget to mention he's Venezuelan too, by the way? And the AP just happens to talk to him because he also runs a security company in Miami too. And according to Noriega, who says that he doesn't know Intriago personally, but he did say that Intriago was lured by the prospect of fast money and didn't perform due diligence. Man, there's a whole lot of folks who are putting words into the mouth of a man who nobody's spoken to yet. AP hasn't spoken to Intriago, but they know that he thought that this was a good opportunity and he jumped at the chance. And this other fellow, Noriega, he's never met Intriago, doesn't know the man, but he does feel that Intriago, he knows that he was lured by the prospect of fast money and that the problem was he just didn't perform his due diligence. Man, the Aryan propagandists are doing everything except for breaking out the sad violins for this clown. Oh yeah, they're showing a hell of a lot more sympathy and concern for a man who organized a kill squad to go after a head of state than they did for Trayvon Martin. The Aryan propagandists, they were trying to dig up dirt on Trayvon Martin. They were reporting on George Zimmerman like he was the one who was killed. But what you see is the white media already, since they can't hide where the mercenaries came from, they can't keep that covered up. That's public now. What they're doing is they're trying to make it seem like this Intriago guy, he was just some mall cop. He was just some guy working security at the local library. And next thing you know, he gets offered a chance to go kill the president of Haiti. And well, it seemed like a good opportunity. They're trying to sympathize and trying to make this guy out to be a sympathetic figure. And the entire purpose behind that is, if you downplay how vicious this guy is, then people are not going to be asking, hey, you sure this guy isn't a CIA front man? No. It was the Haitians who did this. This Intriago guy, he used to this guy used to lick stamps at the local post office. It was the Haitians who were behind it, not this Intriago guy. He was just a poor fella down on his luck. Until those big bad black Haitians showed up with a suitcase full of cash and said, you're going to kill the president of Haiti for us. You're going to kill him now. I don't want to do it. I do not want to do it. You're going to do it. I was guilty. I had no choice. I didn't know what I was getting myself in for. That's the story that they're running with. Don't be surprised if they do finally do an interview with this Intriago guy, and I think it's in the cards. I think it's in the cards that they're going to do an interview. Then expect for him to be saying that he didn't know anything about it and he was totally and completely in the dark, even though that flies in the face of what the president of Colombia said. President of Colombia is saying, no, there were guys in the group who knew exactly what the hell this was about. They knew exactly what was about to go down. It's just like what Malcolm told you. With skillful manipulation of their media, they can turn the victims into the perpetrators and the perpetrators into the victims. And that's what's going on here. We're going to turn Intriago, we're going to create a narrative that Intriago is just some hapless, witless goofball in Miami who got in over his head, and he was misled by those big bad Haitians because they were the ones who were behind this. They were the ones who fronted the money for this. Please don't pay attention to the money orders with the CIA's address on it. Please don't pay attention to that. It was all the Haitians because the white media said so. That's going to be what the white media floods the zone with next. Okay. The mercenaries, obviously the mercenaries were paid by a guy in the U.S. But you know, the real people who set this up were the Haitians. The Haitians were the ones who did this. Again, the first question that you should always ask is, has this ever happened before? Is this normal for this person or this place or this circumstance? Is it normal for the Haitians to go to the U.S. and hire some Venezuelan foreign national to go get some third-party group from yet another country? You go to one country to get a guy from another country to hire some other guys from a third country so they can go kill a guy in a fourth country. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're going to be sitting here plotting the assassination of a Haitian leader and you want to make sure that nobody knows who did it, that's obviously the way to do it with the least amount of fingerprints, right? See, too many black folks, they don't actually want to be informed. What they want is just attention. And disinformation is good for that because disinformation tends to be weird. It tends to be novel. It tends to be saying something different than what the people with their heads on straight are saying. So a lot of folks want to say it just so they can say something contrary for the sake of being contrarian. But let me tell you something. When you're out there repeating the white media's disinformation, that is not some victimless crime. You are contributing to the white media misleading our people and putting stories out there that are meant to drown out the truth. You're helping to be part of the white media's noise machine. And that is not okay. And while I'm sure that some folks will try to claim that, oh, I unwittingly happen to believe some of this stuff, and I don't know what I was thinking, nah, we ain't playing that game anymore. Folks running around repeating white media disinformation, as far as I'm concerned, you're an agent. Full stop. We have to be focused, especially at times like these, especially under the circumstances that we are fighting under. We got to be focused. All of this class clown nonsense, people trying to get attention just by saying something that's out there because you think to yourself that the black media has people looking at us. Yeah, we got people looking at us because what we say makes sense, because we're right. We don't say something to get attention. We say it because of information, not disinformation. And we're going to keep on doing this because this is what our people need. When it comes time to see the stuff that's going on in the world, you're not supposed to be looking and seeing, well, what's the white media's first draft going to be? The first draft is going to be whatever the CIA cover story is. You need to be looking to your people. You need to be looking to news outlets that are operating in your interest, the black media. That's who you need to be listening to. And the reason why is you don't have anybody from Venezuela or anyone else who's recruited us. You don't have any U.S. military that's got it, or CIA that's got us on the payroll. When we speak, we are telling you the information as we know it to be. And we are always asking, how is this going to affect black people? Because that's the only information that is relevant to us.